I am happy to be here today. I am Cindy Kelly with CRK Consulting. We're going to talk about cultural transformation today. And what that means to me is inside of an organization, we want to take the culture of your organization and make sure that you have a culture by design and not a culture by default. And the difference is that you started out with a vision and mission for your company, you built it, and things started to happen. Growth was exponential. What a great problem to have. Or you're a mid-stage company where you've grown, you've got good revenues, lots of employees, but suddenly you look around and the culture, the feel, the fit of what you wanted to do is no longer intentional. It became by default and not by design. And how do we change that? We do that through embracing diversity and inclusion, not the buzzword diversity and inclusion that we hear in the media, not the PC terminology. Actual embracing of diversity, because diversity is our greatest superpower. When you have a diverse set of minds, you get a diverse set of ideas. And when you are inclusive of those different types of ideas, you can then begin to integrate them in your business practices. And that's where the magic happens, at the point of integration. And you can do that through your strategic planning process. Your strategic plan is the how and the when are we going to do things. When you started your business, you may have had a business plan. That was the who and the what are you going to do. Your strategic plan is the how and the when. Typically a 3 to 5 year model. You have goals that you meet on a 6-month basis, key performance indicators. So taking those diverse ideas, including them, bringing them all to the table, and then integrating them into your strategic plan is how you create a culture by design. So the first thing you're going to want to do is build a foundation. In your foundation is where you're solid. So you need to understand where you are. You're going to analyze what is going on. And you want to do that through honest, open feedback, surveying your employees, surveying your customer base, understanding how strong is our foundation really, and asking those hard questions. And this is something that you will definitely do through the strategic planning process when you go through your SWOT analysis piece to determine where you really are. After you've built or understood where your foundation is, you want to get to a point of alignment. You want to have both cultural and strategic alignment. Because if you're building a culture by design, you cannot only be focused on your tactics and your measures. The most important asset that any company has is what?
People.
Exactly, their people. So if your culture is not aligned with your strategic plan, then you've left out your most important asset, which are your people. So you want to ensure that you've got those shared beliefs, the capabilities that the organization possesses, and good communication, the inclusion of those ideas so that it can all be integrated together. When you get to the integration piece, this is where communication becomes vital in your organization. What does communication actually look like? If you're in a very large organization, I used to be the Director of Budget and Legislative Affairs for the City of Ocala for over a decade. We had a strategic plan for the city. From time to time, there would be an employee way deep in the organization who didn't know that we had a strategic plan. What a colossal failure on integration for us and lack of communication. So you have to ensure that your leadership team has both the ability to communicate and communicate in such a way that even the lowest man on your totem pole, your rank and file employee, understands what you're doing, how you're doing it, where you're going, why you're going to get there, and what, more importantly, is their role. There's a story that talks about a former president going to NASA, and there was a gentleman, he was sweeping the floor. And the president says, "What's your role here?" And he looked at the president and he said, "Sir, my job is to put a man on the moon." Talk about integration of your plan. Now, he was the janitor, but his job was to put a man on the moon. That meant that the plan had been fully integrated and communicated in such a way that everyone understood what their mission was. And that's what we call cascading. Taking the information and cascading it down. Think of a waterfall. The water is rushing at the top and it comes all the way down and it fills every nook and cranny and crevice, everything that it touches. When your integration is solid and you've built your culture by design and that your leadership team has bought off, the plan was not created just from the top because you spoke to your employees, you've surveyed your customers, and you understand what it is you want to do, then you can take your message and you can cascade it through everything that you do so that your sales department is speaking the same language as your finance department, as your HR department. What do your processes look like, your standard operating procedures? How have you trickled these goals and objectives down through your entire organization? A lot of companies, unfortunately, don't get this right. They create a strategic plan. They have one. It's very pretty. It sits on the shelf in a beautiful binder, or it's plastered on a wall somewhere, but it's not cascaded. The last piece of this is sustainability. How are you going to keep the culture that you just designed sustainable? This is where you're going to look at your people, your environment, and your financials of your company to make sure that you have that full integration. You will review your standard operating procedures, you review your buying practices, your sales practices, your messaging that you're putting forward to your consumer. A lot of consumers nowadays want to know that the people and the companies they're doing business with are conscious of the world around them. So you want to revamp all of those things so that you are intentional with your culture, and diversity, inclusion, integration are the foundations of your strategic plan, and it's not just lip service. Thank you for your time.